is Mr. Gavin Friday, and I like to be known as Mr. Friday or Gavin. Well, I grew up, basically, I was born nearly 50 years ago, so I was a child of the 60s, basically, which sort of were a blank. Uh, I really started growing up, I think, in the 70s. I'm a glam rock kid. But Dublin, Ireland, in them days, was a very dark place, as in it was a very poor, almost third world. Uh, we are going through, economically, the whole world is going through a recession at the moment. Well, baby, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s in Ireland was a real recession. It wasn't a pleasant place. There was massive unemployment. We had huge political problems with the North. It was dull and grey. So I formed a band and tried to escape it all. So it's a great country, a really beautiful, great country, but it's had its troubles. And the last 15 years we had one of the biggest economic booms. We became, overnight we became almost the wealthiest country in Europe. And last year the bubble burst. But I think a few bubbles have burst in a few countries. So we're all going through the same thing. But let's say Ireland in the 70s and the 80s was tough. But if you grow up with a tough background, it makes you strong. One of the biggest sort of problems I found uh, with Irish politics and the economic thing was after the war, after World War II, most other European countries started to develop economically and socially. But whatever way the Catholic Church, they took a grip and they almost governed the country. I mean, we were almost like a dictatorship. Uh, there's good and bad, but we experienced an awful lot of bad, especially from the institutions that taught children, the Christian Brothers, etc. All those stories are all coming out now, not just in Ireland, in Canada, all over the world. So it was pretty intense. It was the Catholic Church were almost, they were like our Edgar J. Hoover, if you know what I mean. They ruled the roost. But it had a huge, profound influence on me in that as you get older, you realize that you can't blame everything, that there's good and bad and things get misdirected. So I would call myself a black Catholic. You know, I still have this attraction to it because all religions I'm not a fan of. I'm a fan of sort of belief and spirituality. So I would be into Christ rather than the Catholics. I was a very shy child. I didn't like football. I didn't like the usual stuff that was shoved down. Sports were always shoved down you, and the Gaelic language, which I've actually disliked as a kid, but as I grow up, I quite like it. My real name isn't Gavin. I was given Gavin Friday by my friends. I'm christened Fanon Hanvey, which is Gaelic, and there's no actual English translation. And I hated it as a kid, but as I grew up, I sort of went, no, I like it. My main influences were I loved art. I mean, it sounds a little pretentious to say I was into art, but I liked drawing. I liked music. Music was my outlet from day one. You know, I was giving you an image of Ireland being this dull, grey, massive unemployment, not much going on, and the future was the dole queue. And for me, the window of hope was music and books. So I fell in love with sort of T-Rex and David Bowie very young. And they sort of said, hey, you don't have to live in this north side of Dublin that's all grey and depressed. You can be a spider and go to Mars. So music and books too. I read avidly as a kid. So, and that's the beautiful thing about books and music and and even movies, is that you can actually escape. You can go into other worlds. Lipton Village was an imaginary place, really. It was a group of young guys that grew up around the same area. I grew up on a street called Cedarwood Road, and by coincidence, my best friends at around the age of 10 became a guy called Bono and another guy called Googie. Uh, and it was music again. The fact that that pulled us together. I lived at the bottom end of the street and they lived at the top end. And I was quite shy as a little kid. But they found me quite interesting because I had the right albums underneath my arm. You know those days where you'd carry the latest Bowie album or Roxy Music album as you go to school. I mean, you can't play an album at school, but you were being cool, just showing, look what I got. And I'm not into Meatloaf. I'm into Bowie, you know what I mean? So I attracted their attention, and I had long hair and earrings when it was quite a risque thing to do in Dublin. I mean, we didn't have the liberation that America and Britain had in the 60s. But I did always look to England and America, mainly because of the music that came from there. But we became friends through music, and we had real names, as I said, Fanon Hanvey and Derek Roan. What a dreadful name. And Paul Hewson. We gave each other nicknames, just the way most kids do, you know. But the nicknames had more to do with how we physically looked or our essence. And I had quite square features as a young kid. Almost like this. There was this sewage, there was ad on the TV, a sewage pipe called Wavin. And it used to just come, Wavin piping. And this big square pipe would come. I can be full on at moments. So I was called Wavin for a while. But I'm a bit softer. I'm a little softer than a sewage pipe, so they changed that to Gavin. Now, I didn't choose it. It was Bono and Googie who gave it to me. And then Friday was added because I have a talent of getting on with most people. So it's a bit of a Man Friday thing. And we gave each other these nicknames, and then we had similar interests. We were into, sounds really pretentious that 12, 13-year-old kids were like into art and poetry. But we weren't into football. We were into making music or being into music and painting and stuff like that. And we called this sort of little gang Lipton Village. And we made up imaginary games, and it's just one day we'll form bands, and one day we'll make movies, and one day we'll do this, and one day we'll do that. But I think a lot of kids do this in their own way, except 25, 30 years later. Legend happens because some of us have become quite well known. So the myth becomes magical. So I tend to sort of see it very practical for me. When I go out for a drink, Bono can buy the pints because he has more money than me. We're the same guys. That's a tough one. I've always, I mean, as a performer on stage, I tend to sort of throw myself into the character, whatever I've written about. So it depends on how I'm writing or what I'm writing about. A lot of singers don't really know who they are. They sort of they have this massive insecurity and this massive ego, and they're sort of pulled between both. I mean, why do you want a load of people to look at you all the time and listen to you? There's something going on there. There's this sort of need to express and attention. It's not just ego, it's some sort of complex thing. And sometimes, you know, you create characters to say something you want to say. and then you just throw yourself into that. In the last couple of years, I've been acting a lot more. Um, I've done 1 or 2 movies. I've done a lot of work with the Royal Shakespearean Company, and that's been intense, baby, I can tell you that. I love the way an Irishman that can hardly speak proper English is doing Shakespeare, so I find that extraordinary as I get older. But I always see music, live shows, performances as moments. And to really get there, you just got to actually get into the essence, flesh and the blood. Maurice Seezer, I worked with from around 87 till around 2004. How long is that? It's a long time. Um, I started working in a club called the Blue Jays. I started this club called the Blue Jays in post Virgin Prunes, and I painted for a couple of years. And then I needed that light I was telling you about. I needed that attention, or I needed to open up and show people what's inside me. I don't know. So I wanted to perform again, but in a low-key way. So I did this speakeasy sort of vaudeville club called the Blue Jays, where I met up with Maurice. I'd come from a sort of a punk rock avant-garde background, but as I sort of ended the band, I started like getting into more sort of structured music and even classical and jazz. I started realizing, hey, before 1960, there was good music, you know. So I decided I wanted to work with somebody that was classically trained, and Maurice was classically trained. So that journey, we made 3 albums and numerous soundtrack and score, and played about 10 years of shows. But it just sort of, you know, Maurice is playing with me this weekend. We're still friends, but I just think the relationship came to an end spontaneously. He wanted to move to West Cork and plant trees with his wife. I didn't. Certain things kick in when you hit your late 40s and shit, you know? Nothing really to do with me. I think it's going back years. I think it was on some TV situation in RTE, and a lot of people think, oh, what's he at now? He's doing this, he's doing... So what are you going to do next? And I said, I don't know. What do you want to do? I said, I don't know. I just want to get better. Who do you want to work? I don't know. And then he says, well, where would you play? I said, look, I'd love to play somewhere classic, somewhere legendary, a place where music was, when music was, Carnegie Hall. I just said it like that. So it became this sort of, between my friends and different people, oh, Gav's going to play Carnegie Hall, oh, Gav's going to play Carnegie Hall, blah, blah, blah. Oh, maybe you'll do Shakespeare in Carnegie Hall. And it just became this thing over the years, like a joke almost. And then, you know, my friends, as I was talking about, were all turning 50, slowly or quickly. And Googie turned 50 in May. And a gang of us went to a really nice hotel and had a beautiful weekend. And we had a few drinks, and my good friend Bono says, hey, do you know what you're doing for your 50th? And I said, you know what? I don't really care. Whatever. Once I'm with my friends and loved ones and whatever. And he says, I know what you're doing for your 50th. I said, really? He says, yeah, you're going to be working. You're going to be making a show. And you're going to be working for Red. And when I have a few drinks on me, I can talk. But I shut up for the night. So I was a little taken aback, and it was sort of out of my control. I went, what's this about? But the guy who's putting the show together, Hal Willner, I've worked with since 1988, and he's a little bit of a genius. Well, that's an understatement. He is a genius, in my mind. And I've done many of his collaborations and shows, and he just says, let's just see who wants to play with you, and let's throw the dice up in the air and see what comes down. And I mean, you've seen the cast. It's pretty extraordinary. You know? From Joel Gray to Rufus Wainwright to Martha Wainwright to Courtney Love to Maria McKee to Eric Mingus, Lydia Lunch, to U2 as you've never seen U2, as in it's Bono, it's Adam, it's Larry, it's Edge, to some ex-Virgin Prunes, Guggy and Dick, to actresses, the incredible Elizabeth Ashley, Chloe Webb, and more. And surprise guests, Laurie Anderson. And after I leave this interview, I go to rehearse with Anthony Hegarty for a few songs. So what I'm most excited about is a lot of music today is so over-rehearsed, so worked out, so unspontaneous. And these events, we've got 3 days rehearsal, and there's been a lot of pre-production in thought and emails and letters and conversations. But you're getting a group of musicians, almost like a workshop, that love music, that are like pushing it out there and spontaneously doing something. And that's a rare thing in these days. And this, I don't know what's going to happen. And I love that. Because in these days and age, everything is so ordered and anal. And music is about spirit and spontaneity. And that's what we're going to do on Sunday night. Do you think I'm going to live till 100? I'll have to. Maybe Bono can arrange that. That would be interesting. Hey Bono, thank you for my 50th. Can you make me live another 50 years? Uh, it's just such a pleasure to be, and an honor. And you know what's so great is that we're making money for AIDS in Africa. There's a lot of love and spontaneity. We're doing something creative. That's what I love about Red. It's not just a charity. Give us money, give us money. It's being innovative. Like, here's a show that you won't see anywhere else. And you can come, and whatever you pay for your ticket, it's going somewhere. You can go and buy a pair of Armani shades, like Bono, but the money goes to Africa. It's quite cool. But I'm actually quite modest. All I want is a nice all I want is a drink at midnight on Sunday night, and I'll be a very happy man. That's a tough question, but I mean, we don't have a lot of natural resources as a country. We have a very beautiful country. Visually, I mean, everyone goes on about its greenness and the mountains and the rivers, and it's clean and it's not that populated. It is stunningly beautiful, but we've no oil, we've no coal, we've no money. We just have Ireland. But a weird theory I have is we come from a suppressed culture. We're one of the most invaded countries ever. I think the British started it very early. Could be like 800. They decided to come and throw us out. And the Danes and the Norse, and we've had a tough time. Pretty much a similar culture would be the Jewish culture. They had a pretty hard time. They were being kicked around for a long, long time. So when that happens, and when people try to take your culture away from you, your essence of your culture becomes stronger. It's like even in Africa, when you see African Americans, they're stronger because of what they've gone through. It's even subliminal. I think it becomes in the genes. But our language was even taken from us. The Irish Gaelic language was outlawed. The religion was outlawed. Hence the religion later being stronger. It's stronger to a negative point of view. But our revenge was, I mean, if you listen to Irish language, it's very complicated, but it's very poetic. To say hello in Ireland is Buicas Ladia, which translated means sunshine of God on you. And that's a lot nicer than hello. Do you know what I mean? And goodbye is Slán Ganairi an Bóthar, which means it's a wave, and may the road rise with you, which is a very well-known phrase. And that's a really nice way to say goodbye. So there was ingrained poetry. And then when you look back at our history, in the 20th century, the last century, probably the greatest writers of the 20th century were Irish. You go from Beckett to Joyce to Bean to Shaw to Oscar Wilde. You just go, Jesus, what's going on here? All these guys. And the most famous book in the world could be Ulysses, after the Bible. But that was almost like our revenge on how dare you take our culture from us. So it became our only weapon, was our poetry, our music. And if you listen to Irish music, I think we've more, they say the Celts came from the Middle East. So really I'm an Arab. If you listen to the way they say, listen to the way someone like Sinead O'Connor sang, you know, it could be Muslim. You know, that angst, that sort of, that wail. So I think it's in our genes. I think certain stuff is in our genes. Like nobody can dance like a black guy. It's in their genes. So we don't have oil, but we have poetry. For the not very well. I'm not a huge fan of the Celtic Tiger. I was so glad that you could see people being prosperous, that you didn't see people begging, that the city started looking good, that people had jobs. But it's almost like if you have such a hard time for so long, and then you turn around and give a kid a check for £1,000,000, they're going to go nuts. And we went a bit nuts. We went up our ass. Suddenly everyone started sounding very American, which freaked me out. The oh my God syndrome kicked in really quick, and I got a fright. The bubble has burst. Time tells. Time tells everything. We blew it too quickly, you know. But it wasn't totally our fault, because the big boys that run those banks, they messed up America, they've messed up Europe, they've messed up the world. And really it's the start of the 21st century. We've got to rethink things. Socialism and communism don't work, but neither does straightforward capitalism. We've got to get a new way of thinking and working. We blew it, so there was good and bad about the Celtic Tiger, but we're tiny. Right, there's 4 million in the country, do you know what I mean? We're tiny. 4 million in a country. How many's in New York? 7? 10? You know, but we're strong, so hopefully we pull through. And you never really know until you get perspective, a couple of years away. But I really disliked the fact that our culture is what make us and made us and will make us. And when money came in, we rejected it so quickly. Not even rejected it, we didn't think. We just got lazy. And all the girls started getting fat. And that's not good, is it? Alcohol, I mean, I like a fine wine. Who can beat that? I'm not drinking this week because it messes with my throat. But I could drink for Ireland if I wanted to. I don't think it helps writing. I think it's a hindrance. It helps numb you if you've been working your ass. Like I tell you, I will be having a few drinks next Sunday after that show's over. So it helps bring you down and chill you out and have a laugh. And, you know, you got to use alcohol, not let it use you. I come from a country that's been doomed by alcohol. The Irish could drink, they could drink Europe. And they'd have a good go at America too. I mean, you guys, your alcohol's like, it's not good, it's weak. But, so I don't even think any stimulants really help writing. You talk to most guys and they say, hey, I wrote this, and they're out of their head, or they had a few beers or a bottle of whiskey. You wake up the next morning, it's usually pretty crap. You know. But, you know, Dylan Thomas wrote some great poetry, Brendan Behan, you know, you never know, but ultimately, I'd say, you have to get up early in the morning, and you're usually sober when you write your good stuff. It's hard work. So alcohol, keep it for chilling out, fun, and having a good time, not for work. Not. We've got worse. Imagine having more money, you can buy more beer. Have you been to Dublin in its heyday, like in the boom heyday, uh, at like 4 in the morning on a Sunday or Saturday? It's like beyond New Orleans. It's like it's like St. Patrick's Day every day. It's not good. you know, I don't even like pubs anymore. I like going for a meal and having a bottle of wine. Be more gentlemanly. You can't go to a pub when you get old. You can, I suppose, but do you know what I mean? I like the way that you said entering into music. There's a terrible thing that's been happening probably for the last 20 years or so, and it's called the music business. And music isn't really business. It's work, and you got to pay, and you got to, buy your guitar or go into the studio. So there's a business side. But when people say I'm going into the music business, it's not. It's about expression. It's about creativity. You don't join music, in my mind, to make money. You join it because it's in you. It's in your bloodstream. So if you want to be Justin Timberlake, go for it. But if you want to be somebody else, go for it. But it's usually very hard. You just got to believe in yourself. Work hard. I've no advice. I mean, I did everything the right and wrong way. uh, you make it up as you go along, but it has to be in your bloodstream. And it's not a job. It's a way of life. Alcohol. if I open that bottle, I can stay up, and then I love that if you go out and you have a great meal with friends, and then you go home with a few friends and you have a late night disco. I mean, you're not dancing on the table, but you open another few bottles of wine. You've great friends, and you're playing music and talking rubbish. That's a great thing on a weekend. So that keeps me up late. I tend to, in the last couple of years, because I used to live right in the city centre, I've moved out to the sort of, not the city centre, County Dublin, near the coast. So I tend to get up early now. I'm known to get up at 7 in the morning. I like swimming, because I have a bad back. I have no choice there. And I write, and sometimes I go to bed at 11. And then sometimes I go to bed at 5 in the morning. That's when I go out. So, but worry, yeah, I get anxious. But worry doesn't really do any good. If something's broken or in trouble, you've got to bend down, pick it up, and fix it. Worry just makes us get wrinkles. So try not worrying. A mistake. I have shot myself in the foot so many times. I'm crippled. Like, I am not exactly Mr. Great Career Guy. I shoot actually what I think. Uh, in a weird way, I used to think that was really messed up. Now I think it's okay. Mistakes, once you don't repeat the same mistakes, have no regrets, live and learn. We mess up, so what? But know why you messed up and don't make the same mistake. They're all dead. I've lots of heroes. My mum is a hero. She had to put up with me and my dad. She's one of my heroes. Some of my friends are heroes. Uh, there's so many, but heroes usually let you down, don't they? There's people I admire, people I respect. Oh, most definitely, Mr. Oscar Wilde. I'd say the conversation would be mind-blowing. So Oscar Wilde, followed by Groucho Marx. The two of them together and me, it'd be interesting. I'm wearing a very funky pair of shoes. Shall I show you them? Even the cameraman here beside me commented. Can you see them? Yeah. As I'm getting older, I'm getting funkier. So that's what I'm wearing. Tartan shoes.